Hey everyone, I wanted to start the video from the very basics of drawing. This drawing is a study for a painting, but we're going to start with drawing because it's the most important part of the process. In fact, I truly believe that 90% of what we do in painting and sculpture actually comes from drawing. So what you're going to see is a sped up video, because if we do this in real time, it's going to be as long as the Lord of the Rings and no one's going to watch a drawing video for so long. This is only the first stage of the process. There will be more coming soon. The first stage is the most important and is called by different names. Sometimes the block-in, construct, or even a cartoon. But what it means is establishing your drawing in the simplest way possible, but recognizable. I'm going to be starting with bigger shapes. That means no details, because the relationships between the bigger shapes is what eventually makes the picture. And there are three important concepts to this. The first is the proportion, which is the overall relationship between the height and the width, and the placement of different elements in relationship to each other. The second is differentiating what is part of light and what is part of the shadow, and organizing your impression of light in 3 to 4 values. And the third is representing your subject simply but accurately.
I'm starting by establishing the 4 extremities, which is top, bottom, left and right. And I begin to block out the overall composition and proportion with a few big lines, usually just 5 to 10 lines. This is the foundation of everything that's to come. And the goal is to get my proportion, structure, likeness as close to the model as possible in the fewest lines possible. At this stage, the drawing has to be as flexible as you can make it, so that it's easy to change. There can be an inaccuracy of approximately half a centimeter to a centimeter, no? So your line you should be able to change your lines to that extent. And as you go through the process, the amount of inaccuracy in your drawing is going to be less and less. So by the end of the drawing process, maybe the inaccuracy is just like half a millimeter or 1 millimeter or a hair. That's how you want to constantly keep fixing the drawing and keep it flexible at any stage and not be afraid to change your drawing. That's the most important part. And also the 3 most important things at this stage, which is the proportion, the structure, and the likeness. And that is going to be the most important goal to keep in mind while thinking of all the concepts that we've talked about. Earlier, what I did in the drawing was also to indicate the lightest light. It's just an indication to understand which part of the portrait is facing the light directly and not as a way of rendering form completely. It's just to get an idea of the planes that are perpendicular to the light source versus the planes which are facing downward. Now what I'm also doing is adding a dark half tone, which is the value that is closest to your shadow. And in this way, I'm going to be using 3 to maximum 4 values to indicate how the form is turning in the entire drawing. Again, the idea is to keep the drawing as simple as possible so that it's still very flexible and you can make changes and move things around without being too precious about it. In conclusion, focus on the big shapes and big impression, trying to get the overall proportion as accurate as you can. Keep the drawing simple, trying to differentiate what is part of light and what is part of shadow, and use straight lines. To help you simplify, you also have to avoid any information in the shadows, and don't forget to squint.
Thanks for watching everyone. Give the channel a subscribe. I try and release drawing and painting videos every month. And you can find me on Instagram at Ayush Art, or if you're craving for more content, you can also subscribe to my Patreon. The link is in the description below.